Several years ago, the Cleveland Browns were a laughingstock. Okay? But right now, today, the Cleveland Browns are amongst some of the legitimate Super Bowl contenders currently in the NFL. It's pretty crazy to think about it. From where Cleveland was 10 years ago to where they are now, it's an incredible story. Now, I will admit, Cleveland has gotten a little lucky because they've been so bad for so long that they were able to stockpile all these draft picks. And if you're consistently drafting in the top 5 or top 10, you're going to eventually get players like Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward to be on your roster. So the Browns have gotten a little lucky, but I will say, you look at the Las Vegas Raiders. They've had a ton of draft picks over the past 3 or 4 seasons. And quite frankly, they've had some bad drafts. So you have to give the Cleveland Browns organization some credit for hitting on those draft picks. Just because you have a ton of draft picks, that doesn't mean jack you know what. Okay? You have to get good players. You have to hit on those draft picks, and you have to develop those players. And you have to give Cleveland credit. They've scouted and found talent, and they've developed that talent, okay? And I have to say, Andrew Berry is a really good general manager. A lot of people had questions about Andrew Berry when he was hired by the Cleveland Browns because he was a guy that was hired within. At the time, he was the youngest general manager in all football. But he has made me a believer, man, because he has hit on his draft picks. He's addressed the Cleveland Browns' holes in free agency every single year. He hired Kevin Stefanski, who to me is a legitimate head coach. I'm a believer in Andrew Berry. And Andrew Berry is already one of the best young general managers in all football. He's done an excellent job. And the Cleveland Browns have built an incredible Super Bowl caliber roster. This roster is definitely a Super Bowl caliber roster, and it's incredibly talented, okay? And we're heading into the 2021 season. And let me just say this right now. If Cleveland over the next 4 to 5 seasons doesn't win a Super Bowl, it's a disappointment. And by the way, I'm not even going to blame the organization. I'm going to blame the players because this organization has put together an all-star cast of great players. Okay, you look at Baker Mayfield. Is Baker Mayfield an elite quarterback? No, he's not, but Baker Mayfield's pretty darn good. A lot of teams would love to have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback right now. 2 of Baker Mayfield's 3 seasons have been successful. And the 1 year he wasn't successful, it was because the head coach was awful, the offensive line was bad, and he got in over his head a little bit. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump, but Baker Mayfield's on track once again. I think Baker Mayfield has a chance to be a really good quarterback. I actually argued for him to be potentially the first overall pick in Cleveland. They actually took him with the first overall pick, and I think that they picked him over guys like Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold because they saw that he had that it factor, a little bit something special that those guys didn't have. And while you would have loved to have potentially maybe had Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, 2 quarterbacks that are a little bit more physically gifted than Baker, I think that Cleveland is completely fine with where they are because they won a playoff game last year. They were in the playoffs just like Baltimore and Buffalo. So I think they feel very good about Baker going forward. I think Baker Mayfield, the sky is the limit for him. He can become a really good franchise quarterback. You look at Nick Chubb. I think he's the closest thing to Marshawn Lynch in today's NFL. He's a very powerful runner with very, very good speed as well. You look at Kareem Hunt. He's a great running back. The wide receiver core is off the charts with Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Donovan People-Jones, Rashad Higgins. They drafted Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn, who's an absolute burner. The Cleveland Browns' third best tight end is David Njoku. And David Njoku could be a starting tight end on a handful of NFL teams. Definitely, no doubt about it. I'd argue Cleveland has the best offensive line in all football. Their defensive line is loaded with Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Malik Jackson, and they have a ton of depth behind those guys as well. They got 4, 5, 6 guys that can come in and just give them meaningful snaps because a lot of those guys could be starting caliber players on most other football teams. And the secondary is really good. And that secondary has come a long way because last year, Cleveland's secondary just wasn't all that great. You know, they had a poor back end. But they've addressed those issues. Obviously, you have Denzel Ward, but Greg Newsome is a really good player out of Northwestern that I believe in. They added Troy Hill. They added John Johnson. Grant Delpit comes off of injury. I mean, that secondary is loaded. And linebacker is a little bit of a question. But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame, he's a real player that can make a lot of plays. I believe he was a steal in the draft. You have Mac Wilson and Jacob Phillips, who are decent players, but you look at Cleveland's roster, where's the true weakness? They don't have a true weakness, okay? And outside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are the defending Super Bowl champions, I'd argue Cleveland has the best roster in all football. I really do firmly believe that. I think Cleveland, top to bottom, actually has a better roster than Kansas City. I would say Kansas City might be the better football team just because Patrick Mahomes is so great that he kind of tips the scale in your favor. But I could see a situation where Cleveland knocks off Kansas City. They are built to beat any team in the league. They can pound the rock running the football. They can air the ball out with deep passes from Baker Mayfield to Odell Beckham Jr. or Donovan Peoples-Jones. They can shred you underneath with those tight ends. They have a really talented defense. I mean, Cleveland's talent is off the charts. I think Cleveland has an incredible roster, and the organization deserves a ton of credit for building this all-star cast of players, no doubt about it.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.